I feel like sometimes people, because they're more educated, they think they know what others need, which is never the case.
Most people would just define civic engagement as voting for your elected officials, but I wouldn't stop there.
You can go to like protests and rallies and like chant your lungs.
It's one thing to know and not do anything about it, and I'm not sure that that'd be a form of civic engagement. However, pursuing the knowledge in order to do something, that's civic engagement.
Civic engagement means working to make a difference in the civic life for our communities and developing the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to make that difference. It means promoting the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes. A morally and civically responsible individual recognizes himself or herself as a member of a larger social fabric and therefore considers social problems to be at least partly his or her own. Voting rates for young adults are at all-time lows, with a steady decline towards only 23.1% of eligible voters participating in congressional elections.
Public engagement isn't very engaging. It's a huge part of development and it's broken. It isn't run well and it isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. A lot of the time, town planning meetings and things like this are full of loud, angry people screaming at each other and not listening to anybody else's opinions. They just want to say what they think and they're not really willing to be open-minded about the situation. And this just isn't a good way to work. And I think that, as well, they preach to the converted. So a lot of the time, the people that they do get coming along to these things already have set opinions and they're already engaged in it. I don't have a solution to this, but there is a specific area within this that we're trying to tackle, and that's kids. Kids aren't included in these discussions, or they very rarely are. And they should be. They should be asked what they think and what they want. And sometimes developments will put in a slide or a skate park and be like, well, that's what kids want, because they're kids. How do you know if you're not asking them? How do you know if you're not including them?
During the campaign, that was actually one thing that I was really proud of, is that I had a teen campaign committee. And I don't know how much you know about it, but we had 100 students signed up for it. There were 40 of them that were involved on a very regular basis. And to me, that is what really we need to see as a democracy. And I think what's been happening in our country for the last few years is what's making a lot of the teenagers wake up and really take notice, because the decisions that we as adults are making are going to impact you for the rest of your life. And it's really amazing for me to see that. When I was growing up, I don't remember being that politically active. I was involved in schools, in clubs in my high school, but not to that level. And it just inspires me so much to see you kids being as involved as you are. So I think having that component was great. And I've actually seen those kids keep up and stay involved in politics. So kids and teenagers really do have the power to bring around change, not just among their generation, but impact their parents' generation. So continue doing it and do more of it. I think it is hard to get involved because people tend to be so focused on their schedule and their life and figuring out, how to be a teenager and getting through your emotions and friendships and your extracurricular activities. But I think if there is, especially like an issue you're passionate about, is really following up on it. And if you don't have one particular issue, I think one of the really easy things to do is go to a town hall. They happen once or twice a year. That's where you get to meet the elected officials. You don't even have to stay for the entire 2 hours. Go for half an hour. I live streamed mine. Go check it out on Facebook. And that's a way to get involved to see what people are doing.
So here in King County, particularly where we live, the northeast part of King County, families are quite fortunate and have high-paying jobs and are well educated. And the kids here at East Lake, for instance, generally come from families of high income and highly educated parents. So those families have kids who are more engaged and more interested in politics and civic affairs because you have the time to. Families who are struggling just to make ends meet might not have the time to participate in politics. We find that those who vote tend to be of higher income and higher levels of education. So you are among the fortunate, not only to be, in a great school and to be prepared for a job that'll probably pay you a lot and to be well educated, but to be engaged in the political system as well. From the state perspective, the state legislature actually has failed students to a great degree because we do not require civics education in schools. So you ask about the middle schools. I go into the middle schools. For instance, I went to Evergreen Middle School in Redmond. And it was a 7th grade class, and I said, okay, let's just do an easy question. I'm going to ask, what are the 3 branches of government? And not everybody raise your hand once. So I said, just one person, tell me what one branch of government was. And only one hand went up in the entire class. And so the teacher was kind of a little bit embarrassed in the back of the room, but it's not their fault. We need to make sure that kids are learning as early as middle school how our government system works, so that you know what you're voting for and you know how to participate. And, we live in a democracy and you want to understand it. So I then asked, okay, so what's one branch of government? And someone said executive branch. I said, okay, so who's the executive? The president. I said, well, what about on the state level? And nobody knew it was the governor. So it was sort of distressing to see that even in this really wealthy community with great schools, that we on the state level are failing you because we're not requiring you to learn about what I do, basically. Getting elected, representing you in the legislature, enacting legislation, working on important policy issues. We're going to get legislation through this year that when you get your driver's license at age 16, you're going to be registered to vote. So that when you're 18, it'll all be set and you'll be in the books and ready to vote. But the 18 to 24-year-olds, although they're all registered, don't necessarily vote. They vote in low percentages, below 50%. So that's something that we have to work on, and I guess it goes back to this question of economic well-being. Those students who are from privileged backgrounds tend to participate in the political system earlier and to a greater degree.
Gotten out of college filled with idealism and absolutely certain that somehow I was going to change the world. But I had no idea how or where or what I was going to be doing.
Like all things, civic involvement and engagement has to start somewhere. Start by registering to vote, but in the meantime, volunteer in a shelter in your community. Spend time talking to your neighbor. Clean up a local park. Put together a community event. Join a protest or campaign. But above all, find a cause and act on it. Like John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. What is your cause?